It's that time again. All of us parents, we have enjoyed the company of our kids for the summer, but most of us are going to get ready to head back to school either virtually or in person. And because of that, we're all probably looking for some tech to send them with to keep in touch and, maybe get some actual work done between watching TikToks. So of all the laptops that I've checked out in the past year, what do I have as a recommendation for you? Let's find out. Almost. No laptops want to shut anymore. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. This stuff can get stupid expensive really quickly, and if your kids are anything like my kid, there's a real chance that one of these computers is going to get broken before too long. Also, before we get into the specifics of brands or models, I want you to keep something in mind. You can stretch your dollar way farther if you look into refurbished or old year models. I personally use both the Apple refurbished website and Dell's outlet quite a lot to potentially save hundreds of dollars on my technology, and that's a real statement. Neither company is paying me to say that. I use both of those websites pretty frequently because if you aren't looking for the most cutting edge, and sometimes you can get the cutting edge too, you can save so much money. And as one parent to another, we're all trying to save some money, right? So we're going to start this, we're going to break it down into price sections, and let's start off with the high rollers, the folks that need the most performance, the most power, maybe even the most storage. So I'm going to call this the $2,000 and up category, and we're going to do this one first because it's going to be quick, as I'm sure nobody really wants to spend so much on a laptop for school unless your kid, or my kid, had specific graphical or production or programming needs. In this range, you get some real heavy hitters. There's the Dell XPS 17, which can go all the way up to a $4,300 monster with desktop level processors. We could also do the MacBook Pro 16, which, while it has some older tech in it, can still have up to an 8TB hard drive. Or there are machines like the Razer Blade 17, which has some legit power, but also has legitimate connections built into it if you aren't looking to spend a fortune on accessories because you just spent a fortune on the laptop. Personally, the two that I would focus on, and the reason that I would focus on them is I bought them to make videos about, are the Dell XPS 17 and the MacBook Pro 16. Both of these can have monster hard drives, 4TB for the Dell and 8TB for the MacBook. Both have pretty beefy graphics card options. Both are big enough that you don't really need an external monitor to actually work with it, and both are built incredibly well. Obviously, you, or your kids, your software preference will have a big part in which one you'll prefer, but I think there are some key advantages and disadvantages that we can lay out. The biggest disadvantage for the XPS is the build quality. Maybe you're stumbling across this video and you don't keep up to date with the latest laptop news, Dell XPS laptops, specifically the 15 and 17, can sometimes have wobbly or overly clicky trackpads. Both of my 17-inch models, the 2020 and 2021, did suffer from that. They do have a robust return policy though if you get one of these, and I don't necessarily think this is a deal breaker, but you will need to consider this as you buy one. I love that XPS 17. The biggest disadvantage for the MacBook is it's almost 2 years old. It was released back in 2019, and since then, Apple have not refreshed their big pro level laptop. The MacBook Pro 16 still has Intel processors inside of it, while their latest offerings all have Apple's own M1 chips. Don't let that take anything away from it. This will still be powerful, but be aware that there is likely to be an update to this model sometime in the fall or the winter. Personally, if I were looking at these two laptops for my kid, I'd go with the MacBook. And yes, I hear all of the Windows fans. I hear all the Windows people out there calling me an Apple fanboy. And yes, I do enjoy Apple products. I did make a video saying why you should buy the XPS 17. Think about it this way. Power. Yeah, who cares? Both computers will be powerful. But the Mac will have FaceTime for family calling. It could have Apple Care. You can get it refurbished for far less money. You can more easily share pictures and files with your families. I think the ecosystem is worth it to get the MacBook at the high end. I mean, look, as a parent, one of the things I want to do is make sure that my kid's always like talking to me or sharing me pictures or just showing me part of his day. And so yes, I think the MacBook is the better pick if I'm the parent buying it. Next up, let's talk mid-range. So we'll set this up to the $1,000 and $2,000 mark. And here, it's still very expensive. You can get some real deals though. Here we will hear a lot of the same name brands. Apple's MacBook Pro 13 with its latest processor falls into this category. Dell also updated their XPS 15 model. ASUS has the G14, which, while it's technically a gaming laptop, I think it works very well as still like a work or school laptop because it's very small, very powerful, and it's very well built at the same time. And I think in the mid-range though, when we all lay it out, the two that I would put head to head are the M1 MacBook Pro 13 and that ASUS Zephyrus G14. I don't really like the XPS 15 as much because while yes, you can kit it out a lot like the 17, it just doesn't have the thermal system to really handle all of that in such a small body. It is not my favorite laptop of the year. The MacBook Pro 13 and the ASUS G14 both have 8-core crazy powerful CPUs inside of it. The G14 has a Ryzen-based processor, while the MacBook has Apple's very own M1. And these are, yes, one is a gaming laptop, one is a MacBook, so they will have different purposes, but I do think you could use them similarly for school. The G14 is easily the graphical monster here. Unlike the MacBook, it will come with a dedicated NVIDIA graphics card, which will depend on the model you buy. And with upgradable RAM, you can turn this very small, very discreet laptop into a real workhorse machine. Plus, much like those bigger laptops, this one will come with all sorts of ports and plugs built right into it. So if your child does want to treat this like a desktop computer, you won't have to buy other things to make that work. I'm very impressed with all of the ports that they were able to fit into this tiny laptop body. One of the negatives, though, it doesn't have a webcam built into it. So if you do need a webcam for classes, you'll probably have to buy a secondary camera to plug into it. The MacBook Pro 13 does not have the same power levels as the G14, but it's no slouch either. The real win for the MacBook Pro is battery life. This sucker can go for 20 hours on one charge. If you are as forgetful as me, or if you are always in a rush and you don't always have time to charge, this basically means you'll never really need to worry about power, so long as you charge this thing like once or twice a week. I cannot overstate how good the battery life is here. It's the best you'll find on a laptop, period. Doesn't matter the price. You can't spend more money to get better battery life. This is the best you can get. Of course, all it has are Thunderbolt 3 ports, so if you do want to use this as a desktop/laptop hybrid, you will need to buy a dongle, dock, or some kind of an adapter to make that work. Here, when we start comparing these two together, my recommendations are a little closer. If your kid is going to virtual school and will be home and plugged into a monitor or desk setup most of the time, I'd go with the G14. It's very close to desktop level power, and with all of that I/O built into the body of the laptop, it's no problem plugging it in. You can plug it into cheapo monitors, you can plug it into budget stuff because it's got USB-A and HDMI right on the body. While webcams were in real short supply at the beginning of the pandemic, it does look like they are back in stock on Amazon and in other easily to find places, so I don't think it would be that hard to get one and overcome the limitation of the G14. But if your child is going back to school in person and will be attending classes, I would probably recommend the MacBook solely for the battery life. I do recommend this for working folks all the time just because it never runs out of juice. This stuff is wild. So good. Okay, now let's talk about budget, and this will be the $1,000 below. And I know $1,000 isn't all that budgety, but it is when we start talking about this kind of tech. Here we will be heavily leveraging that refurbished talk from earlier in the video. And honestly, at this price point, there's one good option. Well, great. There's one great option in this price point. That's the M1 MacBook Air. Fam, no kidding. The M1 MacBook Air is the best laptop ever made. You can get it for around $849 on the Apple refurbished website and about $899 brand new on Amazon. If that's too much and you do need to find something less expensive, I would say go to the Dell outlet and see what size of computer and hard drive options that you like and pick that out. Dell's budget Inspirons and the like are all pretty much the same when you get into that range, so find what specs work for you and go after it. I'm not being facetious here when I say that. I personally use a Dell Inspiron-like laptop for work and it works fine, but go in and save as much as you can and get the size that you like. But if you can squeeze it into the budget, the MacBook Air will be the best value you can get. It's got the same processor as the higher end MacBook Pro and iMac options. It's got battery life that's almost as good as the MacBook Pro. It's super lightweight, can get up to a 2 terabyte hard drive, has power rivaling my current desktop computer. It's such a great laptop. The MacBook Air will also make no noise as it doesn't have a fan built into it. And you know what? When you're thinking like, but then won't it get hot? No, it doesn't ever really get all that much hot because the M1 is a very power efficient processor that doesn't produce all that much heat. You will, it's not perfect. You will need to get those adapters or docks to plug it into a monitor, but that should be a little easier on the wallet as you are saving a lot of money getting the M1 MacBook Air. Honestly, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy, but in almost any circumstance, regardless of your budget, I'd still probably say get the MacBook Air. If you were looking to buy one laptop and you're like, my budget is unlimited, I would still say the MacBook Air. It's legitimately my favorite laptop on the market right now and probably my favorite laptop ever made. I think it would be a perfect school or work laptop that doesn't break the bank, but also won't break somebody's back that has to carry it around all day. In summary of the video, there are a lot of great options out there, both from Mac and Windows land. These are the few that I've personally used to make all of my videos over the last year, and these are the ones that I would recommend for my own kid if we needed a new computer for him. The main takeaway is to check for refurbished or used options because they exist out there, and you can get fantastic deals with a warranty sometimes if you buy from one of the name brands. You can get such good deals. Don't think you always need to go out and buy brand new if you want to get something for back to school, because you don't always need to. And if you like this video and you want to see some more specific recommendations about a lot of the laptops we've talked about today, here's a link to my You Should Buy series where I cover my favorite tech and the main reasons why you should consider buying it. You can find it by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.